Hi, it's Miss Kermode, and I'm going to talk today on how to type a resume. And first of all, before you get even started, you need to have your rough draft. And so what you need to do is compose all of your information and before you start formatting. So as you can see from my screen, I have all of my information about me in regards to my objective. Qualifications is an optional, your education, your employment, volunteering, your skills, certificates, interests, and references. So this is my rough draft, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to set up your page for typing. So here's my blank document, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the top corner here, the bottom box of font. I'm going to click on it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose either two types of fonts, Arial or New Times Roman. So in this case, I'm going to I'm going to do New Times Roman. I'm going to check the style, which is regular, and the size, which is 12. I then am going to set as a default for all documents based on the normal template, and say OK. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to paragraph. The bottom box in the corner here, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to make sure that it says 0 before spacing and 0 after spacing, and my single spacing or my line spacing is set at single. And I'm going to set as a default all documents and OK. So now that I have my page all set up, now I want to start formatting my resume. So I'm going to go back into my resume. I'm going to start with the name. I'm going to highlight my name, my address, phone number, and email, and I'm going to center it. So if I go to the paragraph box and I click on this box, this is going to center it on my page. But now I want to make sure that I take my first and last name and I want to center, which I've centered it. Now I need to bold and capitalize it. So I'm just going to highlight it. I'm going to go back into my font. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size to 14. I'm going to bold it. And then I'm going to go down to this box and I'm going to say all capitals. And I'm going to click. So now I have my name highlighted. I bold it. It's capitalized. And I'm going to keep my address. It's your full address. Please make sure you put your unit number in there if you have a unit number. Now when it comes to BC, it's BC. There's no B dot, C dot. It's strictly BC. Then you have your phone number. I want to make my phone number stand out, so I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go to my font box and I'm going to click bold and say OK. Your email, I'm going to leave the email. Your email should look professional. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but just make sure that you have a professional looking email. As I head into my headers, I have objectives and qualifications and then education. Your qualifications is really optional, which we'll go over, so you don't have to include that one. But you do need to include an objective. Now I have two objectives that you can see. It says to obtain a seat in the Surrey School District's AST Partnership Program, or maybe you want to do it towards a job, so to obtain a part-time cashier position while attending high school, or it could be a retail position. So be a little bit more specific in regard to the position that you are applying for. To make this stand out, I want to highlight it, go to my font, I want to bold it, and then I want to go to this underline style, and I want to click that underline, so it's just under the words only, and say OK. What I did forget to do was also check in the all caps box. So now what's going to happen is that is going to stand out. I want to do it for my qualifications. I'm going to take out the word optional, but I am going to include it in this one. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go to bold. I'm going to select my underlining, and I'm going to do all caps and say OK. What you'll notice is my line didn't go all the way through, so I'm going to use a tab button, which is going to tab the line all the way through my document. I'm going to go to education, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Education, underline, bold, underline, all caps, OK. The line kind of went through. I'm just going to make sure it goes. Now if it goes over, you just do backspace. And I can see that that needs to go a little bit longer, so now it's the end of my page. Same thing with employment. So all of your headings, you're going to do exactly the same thing. So bold, underline, all caps, okay, and then continue your line using your tabs button. And volunteering, box in the corner, bold, underline, all caps, okay, and then I want to make sure my tab line is going all the way through. Certificates and skills. Same thing, bold, underline, all caps. There we go. Interests. Got 2 more to do. Bold, underline, all caps. There we go. And my references. Bold. Taking my underline, all caps, okay. And using my tab button at the end and pulling it through. Okay, so now all my headings are done. Now I'm just going to take this out and I'm going to tab it. You'll notice with spacing, I'm going to do my spacing at the ends, but I'm going to tab it, and I'm going to tab it twice to make it fit. So you've got a nice even space on this side and a nice even space on this side. My qualifications, you can pick 4 to 6 different qualifications, especially if you don't have any employment or volunteer, you can use qualifications, so you can use the employability skills chart. Go through, pick out 4 to 6 that pertain to you. You can highlight them. And if you go up here to your bullets, you can add your bullets. Now I kind of want still that centered on the page, so all I do is go to the front and I'm going to tab it and I'm going to line it up. So that tab lines up with that tab from the top. So I just push my tab button after I've added my bullets and push my tab button. Now I have my education. There's a couple things you can do. You can tab your education in just like that. Now you want to make sure that your dashes are all the same. If you notice I have a small dash here, a large dash here. They have to be consistent. And then a spacing. So you don't want to have it looking like this, where you have your 2017 and then dash. It should be a space, dash, which is a small one, dash, present. I'm at Lord Tweedsmuir, and I'm going to take my tab button and I'm just going to move the tab over. And I'm currently in grade 10, so I'm going to take my tab button and I'm going to move my tab over. What you'll notice is tab lines everything up very nicely. Now I want my school and my work to stand out, so any kind of title or employment, I'm going to make it stand out. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go back to my font box in the top corner here, and I'm going to do all caps and I'm going to bold it. So now what you'll notice is that is capitalized and it's bolded and it stands out. I'm going to do the employment now. For the employment, what you'll notice is the dashes are the wrong size. So I'm going to take that dash and I'm just going to do a little dash. I'm going to take my McDonald's and I'm going to tab it. Now if you look at this, you'll see that I tabbed up in my education, so I have to make sure that my employment is also tabbed. So I tab my employment, so now my dates line up, but now my employer doesn't line up. So I'm going to backspace it, and now it lines up with the Lord Tweedsmuir title. Now I'm going to take McDonald's Restaurants of Canada because that's my place of work. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go to the font. I'm going to bold. I'm going to capitalize. And now I have my McDonald's Restaurants of Canada bolded, and now it stands out. I was a cashier, so that was my position, so I'm going to bold it, or sorry, I'm going to tab it over, and now it lines up. My supervisor, I'm going to tab it over, and what I like to do with my supervisors is I like to underline it. And so I can go back up here and just do an underline. My phone number, I could tab it, and now it's lining up. As you can see, everything is lining up. And what I like to do with my phone number is I like to bold it. Get used to this box. It's just very quick. I know there's the bold outside, but you might forget. Duties. There's a couple ways. This is where you can customize your resume. You can either underline it, or you could take your words and you can italicize them. That's up to you. I'm just gonna italicize it. So that's what it looks italicized. Or do you want to underline it? I wouldn't do both. You could do one or the other. It's totally up to you. This is your preference. I'm just going to keep mine italicized. And as you can see, I still have a little bit of an underline there, so I'm going to remove it. Okay, volunteering. Volunteering is set up exactly the same way as employment. I have to tab it in because I got to make sure my tabs match my dates here, but you'll notice your dashes. I've got to make sure it's a small dash, so I'm changing it to a small dash. Now I'm going to take my Zion Park and I'm going to tab it, and it's going to line up exactly with Lord Tweesmere and McDonald's. And once again, highlight it, go to the bottom of the font box, bold, bold, and capitalize, and say okay, done. Seniors Home. I'm going to make sure it's tabbed over. What you'll notice is I capitalize Seniors Home. I don't need to do that. I want to make sure it's consistent. So if I capitalize cashier, cashier needs to be capitalized. So I'm going to change this to small case. I like to put my hours in at this point because it just shows how many hours I've done while I've been volunteering. And then now I'm going to line up my duties. When I'm lining up my duties, I'm going to do exactly the same that I did in employment as I did in volunteering. So as you can see, it was italicized, so I'm going to italicize my duties that I did. Certificate and skills, I'm just going to highlight. I want to make them a bullet, so I go up to the top of my bullets, select my bullets, and then I'm going to tab them over. And they should match with the tabs for my qualifications. Now if you don't like that, you can actually tab them a bit more, and they should then line up with your employment, education, as you can see. I don't have a lot, they're not too in-depth, and so it makes more sense to make sure they line up here, because what you're looking for is even kind of spacing on each side. My interests. My interests I'm going to tab twice, because once again that's going to kind of match my objective. But if I have more, it's okay, so I can just continue adding into the interest. I could say cooking, there we go. I could say hockey, etc. So you can add in all of your, any of your interests in there. And so I could just change this around, take out the and here. There we go, change that to a small c. So now I have my interest. Now my references, you should have the person's name. So I'm going to tab over once. You should have their position. So I'm going to tab over twice, maybe 3 times, and then I'm going to tab their phone numbers a couple times. So this space should match this space. There we go. So that space is matching that space, and then I take my tab button for the next one and lining up their title and then their phone number. Name, title, boop, went too far, backspace, and I use a tab, and tab, 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 tab. Alright, so when I'm looking at this, can I put some spaces in here? I could. So now I'm going to try to look at my spacing. So I can add a space here. And so I can just go to the end of the line. What you'll notice, it goes onto the second page. You want to try to keep your resume to 1 page. So I'm actually going to leave that. That's all I'm going to do. You can adjust your spacing. Like if I didn't have the qualifications in here, I could put the extra space above, below education, below employment, volunteering, skills. You want to try to keep it to 1 page. Now you can also add in a design, which is a page border if you like. So you go to design, you go to page border, you go to box. And then I'm going to select a box that I like. I kind of like this one. There we go. Very stands out. So now my resume stands out. I'm making it unique to me by adding a border. You do not have to add a border. So that's just what I like. So this makes my resume stand out. At this point, you can change your margins if you needed to. And if you're a two-page if your resume is onto 2 pages, you could add more spacing, and I will show you what that will look like. So now I'm going to go into 2 pages, move my spacing because maybe I've got an extra job or 2 jobs. So I'm just going to pretend that this is another job, and let's just say it's not McDonald's, but let's just say it was another restaurant. Okay, it was the Blue restaurant. Okay, and look at that. Miss Kind is the same. Everything's the same. Pretend it's not. But I worked at Blue in finished in 2018, and I started in 2016. Okay. So as you can see, it's moving my page over to the second page. I could add in all my volunteer work now. So now my certificates are going to be moving on to the second page because maybe I have more volunteering. So now I'm just playing with the spaces to make it on 2 pages. I could move my name down. And then what I could do is space out my references. I could change these into lists if I wanted to, but what I do is I take my name, and on the second page I use this button right here that will put it at the end, and so this is kind of indicates that there's 2 pages to my resume. So usually a person that has 2 pages, they have maybe 3 employments, they've got different places that they're volunteering, and so you really want to make sure you take up this extra space. So keep it to 1 page, preferably if you can, but this is where you can play around using your spaces. The formatting hasn't changed. I've just added spaces to extend it onto the second page. If you need help, you can talk to your teacher, or you can come see us in the Career Center.